Okay, great. This is Simon with ToughTrader.com doing a trade review of the morning's trade. It was a narrow range and a bit frustrating after the wide range that we got yesterday. So all I want to do is go over Russell, what worked, what didn't work there, ES, and NQ, and how we can quickly identify. The objective will be how to quickly identify chop market and avoid wasting energy, right, when we're trying to trade or avoid over trading that small chop market, right? So before we get started, lovely disclaimer: past performance is not indicative of future results. This is for educational purposes only. This is not a recommendation to buy or sell anything anywhere, right? And anyone who would like to come see the room operating in real time, 5-day trial, email me at trade, TRADE, as in Nancy, perform @gmail.com. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Russell, because that's the ugly part, right? The good and the ugly. So the Russell out of the open. The idea on the Russell is very straightforward. I want to be as mechanical as I possibly can on the Russell because it generally responds to these areas. I want to show you what I was looking at, a little bit about why I chose the zones in those particular areas, and what went right or what went wrong, right? Because a trade failure is normal, right? That's part of business. Okay, so we open up Russell very mechanically. We gap down from yesterday's close. We very mechanically come into the zone, right? The target is the natural harmonic rotation is about 2 points. So my goal is to scale 1 and 2. This hit first thing in the morning. I did not take this trade, right? My goal was on the second zone. I took this trade. I got stopped on this trade for 3 points, right? And so I'm trying to get as close to a 1-to-1 rotation. This zone was a bit wider. We busted through Thursday's high. So what are the characteristics that went through that maybe we could have seen that would have helped us out? So in the AM, going over to the Russell chart, let me pop that over really quick. I pointed out, let's see if I have this chart here. We'll get it. Here we are. And let's adjust this here really quick. So I pointed out that it looks like we broke out. Let me crunch that down a bit. So that's the TPO profile right there. And I pointed out, so here we've pushed down. You can see this, we gapped away and had an open drive higher. That's what this is, right? So let me scoot that over just a little bit. I know what the problem is here. Spreadsheet, chart settings. That's not it. That's fine. We'll just deal with this later so I don't take up too much time. We'll just spread it out. That looked like a bullish gap away. I mentioned that this morning, right? Where we just got stopped was at 1489, right, to 1490.50. That would be this location right here, 1489 to 1490.50, right in this area, right at the essentially the top of the or close to the top of the value area, right? What was my thinking? My thinking was actually a little bit different. Instead of putting the here's the 1486 that we rejected out of, right? My figuring was we come to the bottom, reject out, or more importantly, my thought was actually the opposite when I was doing the zone. I thought we would open up, press in and down like this, and then push up out of this area and not make it to the point of control, right? Instead, what we did, so 2 points about this. If I look at this profile a little bit closer now to see where, if I made errors where I made them, right? So first of all, you'll see here's the point of control that we were establishing for the day, right? And each push down, this is a 30-minute bar, we were not able okay. I'll read that in just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4 periods. We're never able to penetrate below the A period, the first half hour, right? So what's going on here? We're not, so on a half hour period, we're one timing, right? If you break that out, we cannot trade below the prior half hour low. I didn't catch that. Why? because I don't stay that focused on Russell. I expect it to operate pretty mechanically, right? We break out of that consolidation. Move the T. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. There we go. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. We cannot get underneath the low of the prior bar. See that? So again, part of the disadvantage of me trading multiple products is occasionally I miss small details like that. That was an important detail to miss, but I missed it, right? Not only that, but the market is usually very mechanical. The Russell is usually very mechanical. So we rotate up, we tag into the, again, when I did the chart, my vision was we were actually gap higher and push in. And my idea was to either take a trade long here or long here for a push up. So the way I envisioned it when I designed the chart, we opened a little bit differently than I thought we were going to open. I thought we would go up, push down, and then continuation higher. We consolidated lower. So what one of the ideas is you want to go back and go, well, how would I do this perfect, right? Because if I just take the loss here, and I don't learn anything from it, then not only have I lost money, I've set myself up to lose money again in the future, right? So now I can take my checklist, right, and go, are we one-timing, right? Am I taking a trade into a one-timing environment? Question number 2, and this I have to go back and look, right? Does it matter, right? I don't know that it matters in Russell because usually it's so mechanical, right? Number 3, do I really want to be shorting after we've had that bullish gap away without a stretch? Now, if you look at what was working in our favor, this is 2 5-point rotations into this 1490 area. And normally when you go back and look at Russell, and if you look at 10-point rotations, we tend to take stutter steps and counter rotations. And that's what I was counting on. Simply didn't work out, right? So again, we opened up underneath value. We consolidate underneath value, and it is unusual just to truck all the way through value. And I would have expected a counter rotation on this side. Again, that was why my strategy when I was designing the chart, I figured we were coming in from above and pulling back this way for a rotation and continuation higher. So tactically, I know that I'm going to add to my checklist, which is on the other charts, right? Because normally I have the 30-minute time frame up on my other charts to make those decisions, right? So now does anyone have any questions over the Russell? Because other than that, there's 2 keys. If you take a stop on Russell, the number 1 question you want to ask is, have you been taking them in series? Because the win rate has been close to a 90% win rate. Your RR, right? I'm using a 2 to 3 point stop depending on where we're at in the market. So the RR is pretty close to, it's a little bit under 1-to-1 on the risk reward, right? What that means is as long as you're maintaining out of a series of 10 trades, right? As long as you're maintaining a 60% win rate, that should be profitable for you, right? And the win rate's been much higher than that over the last couple of weeks, right? So again, collect the data, collect the charts, make sure you understand what the risk is and how it trades. The downside of the Russell is if you look in the dome, it is a very, very, very thin product. There's no other way to describe it. It is a thin product. If you look on the ask right now in the Russell, there's 2 contracts on the ask. Contrast that to NQ, where you have, where on the ask you have 11 to 15 contracts, and sometimes as high as 60, 70, and 80 contracts. Contracts that to ES, where you have 420 contracts on the ask, 186 on the bid, right? It's a thinner product, so when everyone rushes in, it will run location. That is part of the profile you should have for that product. And if that makes you uncomfortable, right, that you're occasionally going to get run and that you're going to have to take that trade in series, that's a good way to define whether or not you should be taking that trade or trading that trade, right? Okay, so I don't see any questions on Russell. I've checked Skype. So the only thing Ian's asking, and Ian, I'm not sure if you're still in the room. So what Ian has said is that over the last 2 to 3 months, you found a way, and Russell's worked very well. However, my concern is that a 2-point stop in order to keep the close to a 1-to-1 risk reward and 1-point and 2-point scales still puts me slightly inverted. He goes, however, he goes, my question is do we need to look at 4-point stops in order to make the to keep the win rate even higher? My experience has been is that it rejects right at those white zones, has been my experience, right? Now, maybe that's been benefiting from, so the next question that comes to mind is, well, has it been benefiting because it's been in a downtrend? But the white zones have been working both long and short, right? You're just going to, so in my mind, I'll go back and look at it again, but the win rate's been very high. I think my locations for where I've been placing the trade zones have been very high. And I'll go back and examine again whether or not I need to reconsider how I'm placing those trades. But as long as my win rate stays high, I think that's my first stop in 2 weeks. And then the one place where you are in danger in the Russell is when it's on trend day up like yesterday. And as soon as the market opened yesterday, I said, hey, drop the Russell. We're in trend day up. It's the thinnest product, and it's likely to get run over. And that's my warning sign, right? When I look at it and I go, hey, this thing can trend day up or this thing can trend day down, that's the only place where I've had more than one loss back to back. And so that's how I adapted that rule, that as soon as I identify open drive higher, open drive lower, pull the trades. So I'll go and look if I need to adjust for the one timing, but I'm not sure it's applicable in the Russell. So I'll go back and examine that. Everyone, we're cool there? Any questions? So that was the ugly, and I think we spent plenty of time on the ugly. Let's go to the good, right? So if we now come over, and actually I'm just going to leave this up and work off of my charts over here. So on ES today. Okay, this is the chart I left it just as is. This was from pre-market, right? And I said, we have good volume above. What is good volume above? Good volume above spells resistance. Let me move this over a little bit. There we go. It's the only bad thing about Sierra charts is it doesn't let you do an easy split screen. Okay. So let's go back to the open. Again, if anyone has any specific questions on ES, now's the time to ask. So we had a very wide range yesterday. 25 points essentially, right? I'm not going to add it up to the moment. I pointed out, this is my target to the upside, right? We are very likely, so I want to show y'all something so you get this because it's important in understanding why I liked ES and why I liked NQ long, despite the fact that we could not and we did not stretch up, why I was thinking we would stretch up. First of all, the market likes to fill the gap, right? Secondly, we opened within yesterday's range. It's not bearish unless we get below the range, and we open inside value. So we know a couple of things when we start today. We can go through the checklist, right? If we go to TPO, right? So this is today's range. This is overnight. And this is Friday's, right? So what did we, Thursday. So what did we do today? Overnight, we fell slightly out of range. See that? We fell slightly out of range here. And then we pop back up in where we've been grinding through the value area, which is normal. You're supposed to grind through the value area. That's what value areas do, right? Overnight, we popped slightly below. In this day session, in the pre-market, I pointed out where we have this indentation here as a likely location where ES would want to come in and fill in. Again, what's my challenge when I'm putting in the zones is that all of this is based on, this is 2586. 2576 is the 10-point rotation, right? So I'm faced with a bit of a challenge. If I put a zone in tight here and all of a sudden the volatility opens high, this will get blasted right through. Or it'll end up being just a little poke. So this is the difference. Okay, so I want to demonstrate the difference between trading price, right? So when we're looking for a very specific area and very specific price action, right? That is trading price. I'm watching tick by tick. I'm watching it go down. But remember when I described earlier, I said, I know what to anticipate usually from the way the profile looks. When we're in this area, I expect to grind. When we fall out of this area, right, I expect a little bit faster, but I don't necessarily expect it to sweep down and fall apart. What I said in the trade plan, and it's on the video, you can see the video before, was that I expected to push down out of value and then push back up and grind. And my goal was to find location from areas lower to push back up to both the volume point of control and the TPO point of control from yesterday, not overnight, from yesterday. And that's 25.86 and 3/4 to the high of the day, right? To re-examine the high of the day and possibly break was the upside stated goal. The other part of the goal was we had trend day up. I expect a balanced day on the day after trend day up. And so what's our other challenge? If we don't make it up to 25.86, right? So if you'll look how the function of the actual product is working, right? We're having a hard time grinding through these guys, right? They're just getting tired. And if they fail to make it all the way up through value, we've now opened up on the bottom end of value with the majority of the volume taking place up in this area. I would anticipate, because of the strength, that we're actually going to be able to grind up and test this area as opposed to being bearish and saying we're coming down to 25.73 to 72. But the reality is if we exhaust and we get too many people built up in this location who are trying to get work for the push, right, then it would be natural to stretch them out, come back, regain energy into the 73, 72, and then come back up and push out. And we have an example of that I can give you, right? It's pretty easy to see. So let's go look at it really quick. Here's ES, since we're talking about ES. So now we look at it without the overnight price action, right? We've opened up. What have we done? We came a little bit out of value. This is the same area in NQ as it is in ES. I thought we would come in and fill in the profile right through here, which is what we've needed to do. If you look, it's exactly what we did. We came in. We came right back to this profile, filled that area in. Wasn't very much of a rotation, right? But I was watching through here. You've got to get, in order to be bearish, you've got to get underneath this, right? This is naturally what the market, whether it's a low volume node, as I showed you over here, right? So notice how these are lining up. Profile, volume profile, one's a time profile. And I said, hey, look, this area, so what's the market doing, right? You should look at that and go, oh, the market's filling in the profile. See, if I drag this out, right? If I drag this out over here, see how the profile looks right now? Everyone got a good image of that? Ta-da! Point of control is shifted lower, right? It's now at 25.80.50. That's the 2-day point of control in this area. So I'm going to show you that again, right? So you can see this. So you understand what the market's doing. This is yesterday's volume point of control, okay? It was all up there. What do we have to do in order to move higher? Is usually, right, if you read Mind Over Markets, what they say is you have to shift value lower, right? So value has to shift down, and we get above value, and then we push up, right? So if you look, when we came in, we had a huge gaping hole in the profile. We take that same period of time, and we just come right over to this close. And now, see how it's filled in now? So now look below at that profile, right? We should be able to scoot through this relatively easily. There's not a lot of volume in here, nor is it a low volume node, right? We now have volume packed up here at 25.85 to 25.86, right? That does not mean we will reverse out of that location and come down, but you can anticipate that there'll be someone selling to you up there. Whoever's stuck up here will hand you back those contracts at 25.85. It's not a big leap at this point to think we're going to push up, right? Or we're going to come in and fill in more down here at this 25.77 level, right? We're going to come in and fill in more of this location and then come back up if we shift the profile down. So my natural question, if I'm trying to learn how the market's going to operate so I can think this through, right, is I think, well, how did that work mechanically? How did the chart, how did all that go together to work out for a trade, right? How did I know that I wanted to be willing to be long in this area on NQ or ES, right? So we can go back and see how it worked in the past, right? And this is different than curve fitting. I'm asking what the market actually did, right? So let's look at this particular trade here where we actually ended up, let's look through this series, if everyone's all right with it, of how the profile changed in here and how we ended up getting up and then working our way down and then back up, right? So if we look, we'll start on this day. Right? Mechanics matter, okay? Because there is a rhyme and a reason. Okay, we start off with a profile here. This pretty much covers the whole day. Okay, notice here's the point of control. There's a hole here, right? This is the least developed portion, right? This is the least developed portion of this profile. Normally, I would say when I'm looking at that profile, I want to be long between here and here, give or take, right? One of those two areas. Without looking at the TPO, I'd want to be a shot into this area and then a push back up, maybe into here. And then what do I expect up here? If we're opening here, I'm going to say, hey, I expect it to be grindy through here, right? I expect it to be loose through here, fast in, fast out. And I expect it to be grindy up here. Why? Because once we're down here, we have sellers that are trapped upstairs. They're going to offer back, right? So as I go through this profile, right, and I'm going to want two profiles because I want to see how it handles it day over day, but also in consolidation. So when I draw this profile right here, oh, didn't want that. So we all know the volume point of control is going to be roughly right here, but we'll fill it in. Okay, point of control shifted higher, right? We accepted prices higher, volume shifted up. We closed higher. We closed above the point of control. Look how that handled the 2 points. We grind, we grind, we grind, we reject, 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 slowly get up, and we build more value. Over 2 days, right, if we look how that changed. Oh, so the point of control for this day was up, but over the 2 days, the main point of control is 25.78. So guess what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, hey, guys, we have resistance between 25.78 and 25.80.50, right? There's a long line of volume that's sitting right here that's going to be sold. I expect response still from 72 to 70, where back up to the volume. This is start acting as a magnet. And I know I cannot break out or get higher unless I get over this, right? So watch as we chug into the next day. Right, came right into support, right? Because I expected that over here. This needed to get fixed. Immediate rejection down. Now notice some of my challenges that I have as a trader. We opened up and we had all of a 2-point rotation. But from the prior day's close, this is 25.80 to 25.78. We normally say we want a 7 to 10 point rotation. So the question becomes, how are you going to look at that? You need to be able to answer that. No one can give you that magic answer, right? I know plenty of traders that look at this. I got a feeling Mike's one of them. Mike, I'm sure you look at this on a global level, right? From a 10-point rotation, 24 hours a day. I don't. I like the intraday stretch, right? Neither one is right, except what is right for you, right? So watch how we progress. Come right up. Now I'm going to say we're going to reject out of this area. What does the market automatically do? So notice when I'm coming in, the first thing I'm noticing is, look, I can't get underneath my last seller. See that immediately? These are things you should be asking. Can I get underneath, can I get underneath my last buyer, right? You should have that on a checklist as I'm progressing through. Okay, I'm short now. Am I nervous? What am I going to do, right? I've gotten over my large volume point of control. We're doing exactly here what I expected the price action to do today. We're coming back up to test the point of control, right? Comes up. So it's gotten behind, but hasn't closed behind, right? So we've traded all the way through here and to the point of control. Notice I still haven't gotten underneath my last seller, still haven't gotten underneath my last buyer. Now I finally get underneath my last buyer right here. How does the PA change? And how has this process changed, right? Because so notice what's happened. We opened up. We had all green bars push all the way through here. We have not made a lower high all the way through this process. We did get initial rejection, right? So this is the difference between looking at price and looking at structure. And mind you, I haven't looked at the TPO. I don't know where the holes are. Okay. So watch what happens. Pushes behind. We've now gone underneath my last seller. I have no idea what happens. I didn't look. So let's go find out. Pushes back up. So realize what's the problem here now? We've closed above both points of control, right? We're an open drive higher, trend up. How does that handle? So look at what's happened here. This TPO, right? Everything is shifted higher. What the market has done, right? So look if you were trading this market based on this information, right? What I would want to say, if this is all I knew, is I'd go, hey, Simon, you know what? I don't want to trade in the TPO points of control because they're hard, right? Look, this is my evidence. If I'm just starting from day one, from a beginner's mindset, what can I tell from this? Well, this was pretty easy, right? We came to the low volume nodes, rejected out, and pushed up. And these high volume nodes, gosh, that was kind of hard, right? So that would be a question I would ask if I was learning how to trade, right? I'd go, what's easier to trade? Is it the high volume nodes or is it the low volume nodes with targets back to the high volume nodes? That's a good question to ask. I'm not going to answer that question because I trade both of them, right? But that is a very good question to ask. And you can only learn that through repetition, right? I go through this with guys that I coach all the time. Look how this ended up playing out, okay? We ended up with trend day up, open drive higher. Now I want to make another point. A lot of times you will see me quit trading on open drive higher. I just give up on it, right? The reason for that is I know that this is highly likely. And unlike yesterday where it actually rolled down 5 points, I know I'm also likely to get in a battle with the market and never get my roll down. And since I am trying to swing a lot of times from a big extension, notice we've gone from 25.72. So at 25.72, I'm not really willing to fight this till we're up 20, right? And I'm going to sit here and battle emotionally all day long against this. Now, there's a lot of reasons not to battle this. And the biggest reason not to battle this, notice what we did. This is the minor point of control. This is the major point of control because it's over 2 days. We came up, and you can tell people try to sell this point of control. Why do I know people try to sell that point of control? Because it rejected and closed underneath. Then it closed above, came back, and almost, not quite, I guess if you built a zone around it, almost backside tested and continued on its way. That's a characteristic. On trend days up, if we get above the prominent micro composite point of control, as defined however you want to look at it, that's a 2-day micro composite point of control. Do I still want to be trying to trade, or is that an indication of trend day up? I'm going to write that down. And then I'm going to go, I don't want to ask Simon about it, right? If I'm coaching you, I'll answer the question, right? Because we'll go through and dig through and learn how to answer it. But I want to know, the only way I can know is by doing the same thing we're doing here, right? And we get to the end of the day, and as you can see, it was really pretty ugly. It didn't let any of the sellers out till the end, any of the shorts, it didn't give any relief to the shorts at the end of the day. So I'm going to go and ask the exact same question now, right? Because I want to learn how we turned, right? So there's my new point of control for that day. Everyone have a picture of it? We have shifted value up now. If we come back and look at this over 3 days, right? Over 3 days, on each of these days, we have shifted value higher. Day 1, day 2, day 3. What happened to the point of control? Did the point of control shift up from those 3 days? Let's go find out. We're going to erase this so it doesn't get out of control. So now I'm going to stretch this out all the way over 3 days. So remember, originally, I was drawing it out over these 2 days, right? This is where my microcomposite point of control was. Remember, value shifts higher. If the volume point of control shifts up, it means we have had acceptance at a higher price, right? Strictly speaking, you do not want to get underneath this, right? Because if you look at this profile from all 3 days, what still needs to be checked up on? 2570 still needs to be checked in. See how 25.72 got checked up on? That's gone. But 25.70 still needs to get checked up on, right? Not only that, but when I look at the profile through here, it's pretty thick. I know from that profile that once I get roughly under 25.74, the speed is likely to increase. I'm not going to go back and do the profile going backwards. and that it's pretty thin underneath here. If we don't bounce that 70, I'm in trouble. From 2581 to 2570 is 10 points. That gives me the stretch that I want, right? And I know if I get underneath here that I'm likely to come back and check up on this little node where we barely had any volume whatsoever, right down there at 2563, and I would hope for a response there on that stretch. Let's go see what actually happened. It's the only way you can do this is you got to rewind the chart and then move forward, right? So look what we have here. We have a gap down, right? We gap down. We've never closed the gap. Is that bullish or bearish? It's bearish when we don't close the gap, right? You would think that would be a pretty easy natural target in a bull market. We haven't been able to get there, right? Every time we get into the poorly auctioned area, notice we're here, we find sellers. We find sellers, we find sellers, we find sellers, we inch above, we find sellers, we inch above again, we find sellers. No one wants to make the drive to complete the gap, right? You're starting to get acceptance at lower prices from this, right? So we all know it gaps down because I cheated forward earlier. There we go. That wasn't exactly the whole day, but close enough. So notice what it does, right? What do I know happens underneath 2574, right? Bottom of this area, the price action will get loose through here, right? So remember earlier, we had when we came off of this location right here, we opened up, right? We opened up and it bounced right off. So see how we almost hit 2570? What did we actually hit? So I asked myself this question. If I thought 2570 was the area, why did it come off of 2571.50, right? Well, it was just below, so we pushed just below the prior day's low, right? We've clearly fallen out of balance. The balance was up here, had to be, right? Acceptance is up here, and I was looking for a press into 2571. Not only was I looking for a press, someone else was looking for a press, because as I progressed this bar by bar, right? So watch what happened. Why I know this. Let me spread this out a little bit for you. Oh, wrong way. Let's try that. There we go. Not only do I know that I was, there we go. Okay. So see how we just barely missed? I was looking for 2570 to 2570 and a quarter. Now I have to ask myself a question. Well, wow, it came to 2570 and a quarter and we got immediate response of buyers, but it didn't quite press in. We came to 2571 and a quarter a second time and stopped, and then we flushed this. Do you know why I know that was why this was a valid area? Because when we pushed back up against this, we found responsive sellers. Who were the sellers, right? You got to keep asking that question. Who's the buyers? Who's the sellers? Who am I trading against? And I'm going to wrap this up in a minute, guys. Just so you know, I've gone a lot longer than I thought I was going to. I know there was buyers here because they came back and sold against this when it came back down. They were like, whoa, oh my gosh, I didn't expect to get crushed like that. I don't know why we came back into 2564, but I do know from prior day's stretch, 82 brings up 72, brings up 62. We didn't quite make it. Intraday, we went from, 82. So 82 to 72 brought up a 10-point rotation, and we got a response. And that may have been the whole reason we bounced there, right? Instead of taking the 70, right? I know that underneath the 74 that the market can get moving fast, right? I've got a plan for that psychologically. It gets moving fast. We shove down. I also know that if I get above my last seller here, it's bullish, right? We rejected on the backside test for 2 points, right? Let's roll it over a little bit more. We get above my last seller. We push up into the gap. This is the half gap. We find resistance, right? So this is the frustrating part about trading, right? Notice how if you looked at this profile, right? Just a few days ago, we looked at this and we said, oh, look, we opened up. We tagged right into that first low volume node and popped right out of it, right? That was back over there if I have it right, right? Next time we come to that, it was right here. We gapped down, popped right in, and it gave you a 10-point trade. Like you were just extremely ecstatically happy, right? That was fantastic. You come down to the lower end of that volume node, and instead of getting a quick response, they front run that area, and then they swept this area, right? Remember, all the values above, and people are panicking. Why? When I look at this, I go, well, why did this happen? I always ask that question. Why did it work this way? And I can answer that question. If I'd gotten long here, right? If I'd gotten long here, what did I expect? I expected this response. That's what I wanted, right? Because we all want it to repeat, right? Instead, we consolidated with an inability to close the low for the first half hour, right? We came down to test. They tried to hold. Everyone said, oh my gosh, it's going to roll over. They all panicked out. Once we got behind the last seller, they then pushed, right? We're always looking for this behind the last seller. That is a very frustrating sequence, right? Because we didn't quite get location. It was 70 and a quarter, and it requires a lot of discipline to get your money back on this, right? If you came in here, right, you had to be very disciplined to come back and take this rotation back up, take this short, know to cover, and then watch out because you're about to get squeezed on the shorts. That's very, very difficult. And I'm not sure that this wasn't driven by news. That's a really unusual sequence, quite frankly. The note there would be that I'd put in my notes would have been that, hey, 1, 2, and after that, it never came back and tested the low. See how the second period there, we never came back in? I'd have my stop sitting right there. I'm sure it caused a lot of confusion in here with having that low volume node. Everyone looks at them, right? And the fact that it got swept really caught a lot of people out there. I think I may have even taken a stop there. I don't recall. I'd have to go look at, I have a couple of the pieces before I put them together, but I would have been willing to try this area even on the second time back in hopes that it would push out, right? When I go look at the profile, right, when I add these profiles in, the volume profile shifted up on all these days, right? We're at 2582. When we stretch away from that profile, right, what did the market actually do? And it was frustrating. Remember when I was over here, I said I had two areas. I either wanted this area or I wanted this area right down in here, right? See that? Those were the two areas that I wanted, right? So now, again, I doubt I would have had the zone 2 ticks wide. I would have had it 2 points wide. And why do I end up making them 2 points wide? Exactly for this situation, right? So now let's go to intraday, right? If this is, so think about it. If this is frustrating while you're looking at it in this amount of detail, when we're rolling over it step by step, right? This is if I was coaching someone. This is exactly how I teach my daughter, right? If this is frustrating going through it step by step, because most people want to go, where's the trade? Just tell me what the trade is, right? And the problem with that is if I go, look, this is my exact area. If I'm going to trade, if I can get to exactly this area, right, then I'm long and happy, right? If I can get to this exact area, then I'm long and happy. But here's the flip side of that coin that I've learned very painfully over years in my own trading, right? If I try to be exact with this area, right, if 2570 is my exact area and it comes to 2571 and a quarter and then goes, well, has that area been tested or not? So when you see me have a hesitation in the room to going, we came pretty close to 2570, and you see me draw a zone, right? So I might make a zone 70 to 72, right? And I'll go, we kind of tested, and I'll put in the zone, 2570 is the ideal area, right? But if we test the front of the zone, you kind of have to consider it tested. So then do you take the second test or not? That is an individual trading choice. I know the highest odds, if I had to look over a long string of trades, the first time into an area is the best area. If you try to be exact and specific, that very low volume node, right? If you'll look later in the day here, right, we come right to 2570. See how we blasted it the first time? We came to the backside. What we wanted it to do was we wanted it to look like this, right? We wanted it to come down, test 2570, and roll. Look at the difference in when it busted versus the difference when it held. This rotation is from 2576 down to 2570, 6 points and almost tested earlier. This rotation is from 2578 and a quarter to 2570 and a quarter. It rolled 8 points. The closer you can get to 10 points in a ES rotation, the closer you are to making money, right? Now, in this particular case, right, If I simply build a zone and said, I'm willing to stack in my trade, let's just say in this general area, right? Because I know this is the specific area that I want, and I'm willing to load in here on a stretch from 2576 to 2566. So remember, we're on a 10-point stretch. So this goes to Peter, right? Peter, if you're trying to work those options, right, and we're working our way down, Peter does very well with trading the options, but the reason why he does it is this is my general area. I'm going to look at this and go, this is the general area I want. Now get me within the ballpark, and let me just see if I can't use the negative tick and the negative pushes to get me in general, right? If I trade this and you're saying, well, is the second time good, right? So if everyone goes, hey, is the second time into the white zone good? I'm going to go, it came pretty darn close to getting tested, and I usually want the first push, right? A great example of that, okay? So then watch how we rolled out to the end of this day. I don't want to go past this day. Does that end it? Right. Okay. Or we gapped down. I didn't want to see that, but that's all right. So now look at the same composite over multiple days. Let's push this in one more time because I want to show you where the turn comes, and I'm going to draw it out here really quick. Here's what we have is all this poorly auctioned area below. Let me do something really quick. I can't resist once I see it. See that low volume node area right there from the backside? See how we came in to fill that in over here, right? And if I said, this is the area in general I want, right? We're trading up here, right? Notice we held, so notice this encapsulates it beautifully. We never shift volume up here. The point of control is down here. We come into the point of control the first time we find responsive buyers. But what does the market want to do? It wants to fill in the hole. We fill in the hole and we take off. Even though we traded down here, we left no volume on the profile, right? Where's the next area? When I'm looking at that profile, I immediately go, hey, that is a pretty sweet profile. So you know where I probably want to start picking up that trade? I've got this, and I probably want to start front running these areas like that. So now let's cheat. Instead of keeping on drawing the profile because I'm getting tired and it's lunchtime, it's gone way longer than I thought. What does the market actually do? Let's go look. Okay, we came in, we gapped down. Notice we never got to the low volume node. We chose this low volume node. See that? So if you were conservative and waiting for the biggest low volume node, right, we never got there. We chose this one. So I would have had to have a zone, right here. We fill that in. We run a little bit past it. Notice the area that's involved here, right? 25.57, 3/4 to 25.56, and it runs a little bit below. And if you're thinking strategically, right, you're going to go, but hey, we could come back to 25.50, and you're absolutely right. What we do as individual traders, we have a process that I'm not going to go through, right? But what an institutional guy does is he goes and looks and goes, this whole thing needs to be fixed, right? He's sitting up here and he goes, this whole thing needs to be fixed. Give me a block of calls. Give me a block of stock, futures, calls, whatever you want here. Give me some here. Give me some here. And give me some here. I'll take the whole thing. And where am I trying to get back to? This point of control. That's my constant target back up. Look how it treats it through here, right? Down. And notice right where we make a beeline to. The point of control. When we gapped, we go right to 25.57. Now, if it gets past it, fine. There's other areas above that need to be tested, right? And all the market is coming in and doing is this profile develops, right? So now I have it on a big time frame, right? Notice if I'd been patient and said this is my best location, it was great location. It's just never ever got there, right? Every hedge fund trader I spoke to, every single one without exception said on this day here at 25.56, all of them said I have huge orders sitting at 52 to 45. All of them did. Right? Everyone said, and everyone was upset that we turned right here, right? Well, what did we do? Look how the process went. So this profile is drawn. Let's capture it. That's right. Swing low, swing high. When we were up here, we left holes back over here, right? What did the market do? We filled in this hole. We traded down. We traded up, right? So by the time we got over here, what did this profile look like? It's magic, right? Watch how it changes. Okay, now finished this day. Okay, There's still a hole here. See that? When we've come up, we just have a more pronounced point of control. Notice we are trading through the point of control. Do you see that? We're trading through the point of control, and we're trading down to the holes to fill them in, right? Notice when we go up, right, as this comes down, where's the hole? The biggest hole I see is in two locations. There's one hole here, right? And this is from this date, right? When we're down here, I go, there's a hole here, there's a hole here, and then we have this top area. So look what the market did. When we came back up, we came right to that area. It was a tiny hole, so we blasted right through it, and we came to fill in this location, right? Once we got down here, see that hole over here? We're going to draw the profile again because we've come in over here. See how the holes disappeared now? It's not a beautiful profile. You don't have a high volume node here, but you've taken the hole out, right? There's only one little area left, and that's that 25, 50, 50, which everyone and their brother wanted, right? And now if we come all the way over to today, right, to yesterday, see this area up here? If we fill that in, all the way to right now, see the profile right now? See how the hole is gone? There's nothing to do here. There's only one area left from this whole area that needs filling in. And so I'm going to erase all those lines. And if I'm an institutional guy, right, I'm going to go, hey, you know what? Starting from here to here, I want to get long. 25.55 to 25.41. I'm pretty comfortable getting long down here because we're going to fill this in, right? And then what you can do when you're learning this, right? So you can go back and look at old areas because does it have to come back in and fill in? Well, it doesn't, right? So when you're looking as a trader, right? Remember this crap where we couldn't get it to roll down? Look at the profile through here. Watch this. See that? Tons of holes through here. So watch, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go, guys, when we're up here, as a trader, as an institutional trader, I know that from here to here, right? That has to get filled in. I know that the volatility will probably be wider in this area if we get back to it, right? But then I go look to the right and I go, oh, we never came back in. See how it comes right down to the top of it? Just the market just didn't want to explore it yet, nor have we explored it to this point. Hold on a second. Oops. Computer locked up. Hold on a second here. Come on. There we go. Thank you. Okay. See that? We never come back in. But when you look in the past, so if you're the kind of trader that says, hey, I want to fill in these holes, these are where I want to come in to get long again. This is where I want to come in and really? I don't want to download historical data. Okay, hold on. There. Okay. So when you come back in over here, guys, right? So when we look at this, see this here? What happened here? Well, that's pretty easy. Okay, a couple things. Swing low to swing high, right? All the volume came in on top. Where did we come back in and fill? Well, when I look at this profile, so we have a gap here. There's no volume in here. See this? There's no volume in here at all. Okay? And what do I say about areas that have no volume, right? Push into the top, respond, push into the mid, respond, sweep to close. So where do we come in here? If I'm an institutional trader, because that's where you should start thinking, right? What do the institutional guys want to do? They're going to say this. My goal is to buy here, 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 and here, excuse me, here. That is my goal. Notice every time sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Now, notice how the institutional trader thinks versus how the day trader. Institutional guys get looking at that going, we need to fill in this area first because it's kind of book map encapsulated, right? There's a little valley here, and there's really not a clear valley here because there's no volume down here, right? So what we've done is we've examined price well here, and we examined price well here, right? So what the market did overall is it came in and said, okay, we got to fill in the unauctioned area, and it did its little response, and then it swept it. We all know how the low volume nodes work. But then we pushed all the way through, right? Boink, 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 all the way through. Okay, we've come back in. What is the profile when we get here? What does this profile look like now that we've swept through? Well, there's a cool way to find out. You just draw it, right? So we come back, and I'm going to draw it right to the low. See how there's no longer any holes in that profile? It filled it out. But if you don't understand in the process of this getting filled out, right? If you don't understand in the process of this getting filled out, right, that's what the market's doing, you're going to be at a loss. What you're going to see is you're going to see, oh my God, people are just selling. It's a bear market. It's going to zero. But the market's not actually doing that. It's filling in a mechanical component, right? And that's the problem as a day trader when you're trying to be pinpoint perfect, which there's nothing wrong with it. There are traders who can be pinpoint perfect, right? But the guys who are pinpoint perfect understand on the larger scale what the market is trying to accomplish, right? So when I look at the market from this point and I look at this, I'm going to go, hey, you know what? We filled in the worst of this area. My target is over here now. Why? Because there's a big gaping hole in this area. This thing wants to get fixed, right? Additionally, once I draw this out, my point of control is still up here. That's my target back, right? If the point of control never shifts, what does that tell me? It tells me we never did any concentrated volume down here, and this will begin to act like a magnet as we pull away, which is exactly what happened, right? Notice as we get in here, see how we're still leaving a gaping hole over here? We push through. We filled in, we still leave a hole at the gap. It's no longer an open gap, but there's still a hole in it, right? So when I pull this profile out one more time to over here, gap is gone, and point of control has shifted lower. What is point of control shifting lower tell me? We've accepted value lower, and so one of two things will happen there. If we are trending down, we've accepted value lower, and we can now roll to the downside, right? If we have shifted value, so how would I know if we shifted value and then we were going to continue lower? We just started the day off with an open drive lower as people try to evacuate premises, right? Instead, what do? We came down, we filled in the holes, we shifted value from up high to down low, we gapped up, now there's no resistance ahead of me, right? When I look at this from this perspective now, what it leaves behind, right? See how we shifted value up again? So I know that we shifted value up. Now, this is a great example. Value shifted higher. We never got underneath value. Therefore, we could continue to explore price higher. What have we done back here? When I'm looking at this profile, if I'm a buyer, I'm immediately thinking, hey, we got to fill this, right? The market's going to want to get filled back in. Now, does it? Hell, I don't know, right? Certain things have to happen as we move forward. So look as we come in, right? Watch how the market behaves. I'm going to be saying I want to get long here, in here, and finally in here, right? And I'm getting in capped between these two locations. So I'm going to add all my day trading knowledge in to figure out where the reversal is going to come. And I'm going to roll this forward, right? So look how the behavior comes. What's the first thing we did? We came in. There's a pronounced low volume node right in here, right? We came to the high volume node, rejected out. What do we know about high volume nodes just from this little lesson? Sometimes they reject. Sometimes they get traded through, right? We know that all of this can get rejection. We just don't know where the market's going to get tired. So we have to use intraday rotations to figure that out. I'm not going to go into that right now. So then as we chug along, right, look how the market comes in and decides to we never come back and fix it. See that? All we did is came back in. See this right here? We said we had the biggest hole in this profile is right here. See that? It's clearly, when you look, you can see it looks like a cannon stuck in there, right? So watch by the time we get over here, right? Okay, we reversed out of here, right? We got above my last seller, so on and so forth. We double tested. We couldn't put a new low in. We rotated from 2508 to 2584. That's what? 08, 98, 88, 25 points, shockingly, right? 25-point rotation. We reverse. What does the profile look like now? That hole has been, it still exists, but it's less prominent, right? And I've now shifted volume point of control down. See it? Volume point of control was up here. I've now shifted it lower. When I shift volume points of control lower, I have to be cognizant of the fact that we can now push up, right? Just like this morning when I was looking for a volume point of control shove lower, I'm looking for price action to tell me whether we can now push higher, right? Watch how this area is going to get traded in the future, right? Also, I have a ton of volume here. Notice how I'm just chugging through, right? Pushing through, right? I have I filled in all the holes in there, but see how we didn't just rip through there? Why couldn't we just rip through here? See, we can up sellers, because all these guys are trapped up here, right? So we're grinding through. We're holding above the poorly auctioned areas that still need to get fixed, right? But there's no retreat. And if you look at this, we then drive, right? We're driving and we're looking at that. We're going, well, gosh, all that has to get fixed, right? But you can't get fixed unless you get underneath these points of control, right? That was the point where everyone was going nuts, right? Because we couldn't get any pullbacks. Now, watch where we roll down, right? See this? This is where we're at. This is my point of control right here, right? It's been there for a long time. I know in order to be bearish, I've got to get underneath roughly 25.48, and I want to turn buyer through this whole area. I want to look for buying opportunities throughout this area, right? As I shove through here, oops, didn't mean to do that. Where did I send this all the way back in time? Gosh, this always fascinates me, but it takes a long time to get through. So notice what we do. See that right there, right? So sometimes we come to a big point of control and we stop, and sometimes we decide to chug on through. Notice where it chugged through to. What's the rotation this time? 25.76 to 25.44. That's a big rotation. 30 points this time, right? Notice, if you'll start focusing on some derivative of a 20-point stretch, right, you have a lot easier time finding points where we're going to return. Now, check this out. I would have been targeting on this push down. I'm going to sit here and go, again, I'm basing the charts on a very large profile. I'm not doing the detailed work of day over day, right? But I'm going to be sitting right here and going, I want 25.38. So I might make my zone, since I know I want 38, I might make my zone 38.25 to 41.25, right? Notice that it comes right to the tick. Do you see that? It wasn't enough. How do I explain this? The rotation was too stretched. We had stretched too far. We'd run out of gas, right? And this is a perfect example of where I go, hey, I know, right? I'm getting into my first low volume node area. I'm stretched pretty big. I expect response out of this area. But let's say I don't get hit. I'm now going to go in this area and go, look, we're trend day down. We've gotten all the way down. Notice here where I'm getting my reversal here is inside the high volume node and it slips. Notice where I'm constantly getting good U-turns out of is when I get into these poorly auctioned areas. That's strategic, right? That means I go, I might get a return out of here, but this is really where I want my returns, right? And when I look at this profile over here, see this back over here when I've stretched and I see this hole. Watch how that hole gets filled in here. Gosh, we're getting a lot of days. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet. That's as much as I can pull in. Let me see if I can. Okay, by the time I get here, right, so I'm going to modify this a bit. See how the hole got filled in here? That was there. And when we came to that hole, we got a response. See that? We came into this area, right? And we responded up. We swept the point of control, right? Now watch what happens next. Came right down into the low volume area underneath the point of control, respond back up. I hate that feature. Okay, from this point here, right? See that right there? I know that I can trade through this area because I've traded through it numerous times. I don't like this area to trade in, right? I want to see from when I'm here, and I close this day out. So let's close it. That day closed, right? I get a V shape. When I get a V shape profile, if I gap away from this, see this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days down, right? So now what does the profile look like when we're here? Watch how it changes, right? We've come down into, what do we have to do? We had to fix these areas down here. We really didn't do much to add to the volume in here. The holes are still there, right? This is my point of control. I have holes here, right? So I don't have any low volume nodes here. This is all a high volume node area, big fat area, bigger, smaller, right? So I'm going to look, if I'm just drawing it off a micro composite, bigger picture, right? That's the area that needs to get filled in, plus this, right? So where does the market go? Right into the micro, see right there? It just comes right in. See if I'm trying to target specifically that volume point of control. I may get it or I may not. Starting to notice that institutions on a large micro composite are front running those areas. Do you see it consistently? They're like, oh, I think I'll front run that area, right? And then we come over and now we're done. That's where we're at right now. So that's why we stopped. So what's the big takeaways from this area, from this lesson, if I was trying to be strategic, right? Because I realize for most people, this is teary-eyed, slow stuff, okay? So let me explain what the lesson is from this area. First of all, where you have large volume points of control, they can either reject or they can get swept through. There's no rule, okay? Sometimes they hold, sometimes they don't. Stretch helps, okay? But they do get traded through, okay? That applies both to the daytime session and on micro composites, right? What's the other thing that we learn from this that you need to think about and go, that's interesting. When we have a low volume area, right? When we have a high, so see all this right here, all this built through here? See how we're starting to just wish-wash through here in both directions and just, there's nothing specific, right? Versus turn, turn, turn. If I had my choice of only being able to trade one thing, I would go look where the holes are in a profile, and I'd go, I want to start fading in where those holes are, knowing that the characteristic is we generally trade out of those holes. And then when I'm around volume points, if I can only trade one strategy and only do one thing, that is what I would do. And you know why? Because of two reasons. When you are in these areas where they have holes in the profile, let me erase this. Swing high. When I look at this and I see these holes in this profile to this day right here, right? I know two things. This volume point of control may or may not hold. I don't know that for a fact. I have to be able to read the price action, and it may whip the daylights out of me through here, right? So if I had to say I wasn't going to trade anything, right, I'd go, I don't want to trade here, right? If I had to be pinpoint perfect, right, and I wanted to be less stressed, this area is going to get swept through. And what happens? This area gets swept through repeatedly. See that? We keep bouncing from top to bottom of that area, right? If you took a trade anywhere in here, you had a very difficult time, right? But if you came to me on this date, on the 9th, you said, Simon, talking about the close here, you come to me here and you go, Simon, where do you want to trade, right? Where would you like to place trades? And where would you do it if you had to do it blindly? I'm going to come in and do this. I'm going to do here to here, right? I'll color them white so you can see them. And I'm going to do them from here to here. And then I'm going to do it from here to here, and then again from here to here, roughly, okay? Those are all going to be my locations. Right? And I'm going to say generally, here we'll leave those orange, but this is the point of control. These are all zones, right? So if you look how it treated, right? We came in, We chopped through, filled the hole, but we rejected, right? We should, if we'd held above, I would have expected it to push in. And then notice where these are low volume nodes, we pick them off one by one. See how we pick them off one by one? And we tend to reverse. Now, look at some of the challenges that you'd have with that, right? For guys who try to be pinpoint perfect. So if I walk in the room that day and I go, my plan is to start buying at 25.68 and sell at 25.62.75, everyone would be like, well, wow, Simon, you have 8-point zones. That's pretty cool considering we have 10-point ranges and you have an 8-point zone. You ought to do fantastic, right? That's not me. That's what the market's dictating, right? So what am I going to do? I'd say I don't want to trade it. I go, my least favorite place to trade would be in the middle here, right? But look how many people would say, but look how we responded out. And I'd go, I agree. But if I have to trade this location 10 times, look how many times we get swept through, right? How many times do you think you're going to be able to pinpoint a trade in this area, right? Or catch a reversal that makes sense without getting swept? Notice that while some of these pushed all the way into and towards the back of these holes, occasionally we miss them, but because I've shown you examples, right? I'd rather go, I'm going to layer in through here. I'm going to layer in through here, right? I'm going to layer in through here. I'm going to layer in through here and try to catch a reversal, or I'm going to go down to tick divergence, reversal patterns that we all go through in the room every day, so on and so forth, right? So that they can help me make my trading decisions on a daily basis and I make good trades. If you'll notice from here, the one characteristic that all of this has through here, right, is if you waited to get into these areas, right, you consistently have, look at the U-turns. Area 1, right? If you're a swing trader or an options trader, area 1, you pushed in here, you started fading from 78 all the way back to 82, 4 points. Plus you got to give a little on the back. Plus it took to the, probably looks like it took 2 days, right? All the way through here, you got it rewarded with a maximum favorable excursion. Let's count it from the front. 25.78 all the way down past the high volume area into the low volume area of 25.64. That's 78, 68, 15 points, maximum favorable excursion. From the front of this area, 25.68, right? You got a maximum favorable excursion all the way back up to 25.84. From this area, 25.58 to 25.54, maximum favorable excursion to 25.70, right? 10 to 15 point rotations out of these areas. But if you're trying to pinpoint this thing like a child and hold it really tight, right? So what would I do next in my strategy? I'd find out very detailed what the reversal patterns look like in these areas, and I'd figure out a way to scale into my trades in these locations, right? So when we come all the way over here and we look at today, right? We're chopping like the daylights to today. Hey, my wife's online. What do you know? I bet she's about to ask me where the heck I am. So I told her I'd come home for lunch. So that's roughly yesterday's close. Notice there's no low volume node here. Here's the high volume node, right? We danced right to that high volume node. And guess what? We have absolutely no energy. Guess what we're filling in here? We're filling in this little area, but there's no stretch into this area, right? So we came above. We cut through this yesterday, right? High volume node, blasted up, right? Now when we look at this, part of the problem we have here is there really are no holes. This is very spaceship looking at this point, right? It looks like a city skyline here. There's not a lot. Guess what the only area on this chart that needs to be filled in, right, is all the way back to everyone's, oops, didn't mean to do that. The only part that needs to be, filled in, that's glaring to me, right? All of these are little holes and they may get respected, but I want big holes in my profile. That's the only hole in this profile that's still just dying to get filled in, right? Now, all of this applies to individual areas within the day. I'm not telling you it doesn't, but this is what's glaring. My location right now that I want, if I could have any location, is 25.52.50 to 25.48. And what I wish there was a big glaring hole up here that I could short against, because I would have loved to swing, right? If we could get two-sided markets, I'd love to swing from up here down here and darn straight from 25.52.50 to 25.48. I have my radar on, up and ready to go. I can tell you everyone and their brother wants 25.52 to 25.48. I've spoken to multiple guys who trade size. When I say size, thousands of contracts. Those guys were waiting to load the boat at 25.52. They were all in agony that they couldn't get it, quite frankly. I couldn't believe the amount of money that I heard on that, myself included. I wanted 52 to 48. I had my zone right here. I missed it this day. I was willing to front run it. And that's when I said that day, if you remember on this day, I said, this is half size double stop territory for me. Why? I wanted to make sure I could come all the way through here and stick a trade because I was pretty sure I could get the U-turn all the way back. Anyways, does anyone have any questions over that? I'm sure a few of you are glassy-eyed. I'll post it up so y'all can see it. And then I take that whole entire process and I apply it to intraday. So the takeaways from this, these are the takeaways, right? If I had to choose a place to trade, I prefer to trade in a low volume gap instead of a high volume node. Sometimes the high volume node holds perfectly, particularly on a stretch, right? But sometimes it sweeps straight through. On the low volume node, I have to be prepared for it to melt into that low volume node a little bit, unless I'm a very skillful day trader. I have to let it melt in a little bit, right? But I know I have a pretty good chance of getting a U-turn out of that thing, right? And that's where I'm going to go to make my money, okay? Let's say that again. That's where I'm going to go to make my money, okay? So, and that's where I'm looking for my swings. And then when I get a profile that looks like this, right? So this is the only thing I have down here, right? So now I want to go and change the profile up a little bit to see what I'm not seeing. And I'm going to start doing the profile from here to here, right, to figure out why this looks like it looks. And I bet if I do that, let's see something here. So see how this is all filled in except for this part here? I'm just going to remember this part. But now I need something new to work with. This doesn't do any good except to know that I pretty much actually, right, should do this. From here to here, I don't want to trade, right? Because now I know that I can get traded through. And that's exactly what we did yesterday. We opened up into it. It might reject, it might not. It swept right through. It might reject, it might not. I don't want to be stuck in here, right? So if I erase this and I go swing high, swing low, I do it the other way around to yesterday's close. There's my hole. Hole in there. I'm going to have this highlighted, and I'm going to note to look for the price action to fix the 72.68 area. Of course. And there's my hole up here. Why I wasn't shorting that yesterday is beyond me. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look at in general, right? So now your challenge, guys that are trading in the room who want to trade with 1-point stops or 2-point stops, what I would suggest is, right, if you're struggling, stay out of high volume areas, look for the low volume areas, and be prepared to fade into those low volume areas for the shot out of those locations, and learn how to twist this like a Rubik's Cube, because this thing is just a constantly changing matrix, right? And once it gets filled out, once that whole profile gets filled out, you're going to have to go and figure out where to start that profile from again to get your key areas. And then you may end up in a day like this where you go, well, I don't trade the low volume nodes, like, and it works perfect. I mean, I don't trade the high volume area and it works perfectly. It doesn't sweep, right? But notice it's also not responding very, see how strongly we responded out of here? We're not responding very strongly out of this location, right? So that's kind of how I try to get it. This is a big challenge for me because my ADD and my dyslexia, I have to think globally and act locally. It's think macro and act micro, right? So they're hard pieces to put together. But anyway, for guys I coach, I hope this helped. I know this is not easy stuff, right? But that's how the market works, right? I would want to stay out of this I'd want to be in on this stuff here. I'd want to be fading in here, fading in here. That's the easiest way I know how to make that work. So anyways, my name is Simon. I'm at toughtrader.com. I am tired. I am done with the day. I'm flat, no positions. I missed 2 huge trades this week and got a stop or two that I got so I had a good week last week, and I think I had a good beginning of this week, but the middle to end of this week is just blown. To be direct with you, I got a stop on Russell, which was small. I wasn't worried about that, but it wasn't the trades that stopped me. That wasn't bad, but the trades I missed by literally ticks. I paid for that this week, and it's seriously making me reconsider how I fade into a trade. And you probably will see me fading these macro large low volume node areas. You'll probably see me starting to fade those as an area with and when I get U-turns in these areas, getting very aggressive on the U-turns, accepting that even if it pushes against me, I'm still going to be working into these areas, because this week really hurt missing these key areas. I missed I think a 50-point trade on NQ, and I had the boat loaded, and I missed it yesterday I took a stop early in the morning on half size. Where was it? Here. I took a stop. I'll show you exactly where I lost it. Lost it, or didn't get paid, is a better word. Hold on, that's not what I wanted. I paid a supreme price for this week for trying to be pinpoint accurate. It really hurt. Let's crunch this up. Too much. Let's get rid of the volume. Let's move this up. Let's move this down. This. Why can't I just get this to reset? Okay. Man, I am struggling with this, guys. Hold on one second here. There we go. Ah, thank you. Okay. So I missed this by literally 2 points, right? If I draw my profile out, swing low, here we'll just stop it at the swing high. Okay, notice the large volume area that got filled in first, right? And then I wanted, why did I have this? I had this for a very specific reason. Let me see if it was this here. Let's stretch that out. Hold on. I had that area and I really wanted it. What did I have there? Because it was this right here. And I was off. Below there, I had the zone. I think I had the zone at 30 or 29.50. And I mean, we missed it by a point or something like that. Like I just barely missed. I just barely missed that. And what I was trying to hit, I know what it was. I was trying to account for this furthest point. I was trying to account for this. Let's stretch that out. That's what I was looking at. Okay. I was trying to get this right here to this right here. See that? I was trying to be pin perfect on that little area because I see how this is bookmarked right here. And I forget why exactly I ended up landing the zone, but I was trying to nail this like to the tick. And it was right. So when you look at this profile back here, see when you come back here. Right. So see when this profile is done, I'm going to go, okay. Right. So this is on the day profile, so it's a little bit less. But see how I'm going to say this needs to get filled in. I had this stupid thing on. Tomorrow. There we go. Okay. I would have, so remember stretch, right? High volume node. See how it rejected out of there? Low volume node. We rejected out of there the first time. We open up into low volume node, reject. Come and check up on the high volume node, right? Push down, push down, push down. So see how I have this whole area here where I would have gone. Okay, so this is day, so you have to treat it a little bit differently, but I would have gone like this. This, right? And then I wanted this, and then this little area right in here. That's all I wanted, right? So see when we trade in, we take here. So watch how it goes. We took this out. Then we take this out. Disappeared, right? Then we take this out. Now notice if I try to be pinpoint perfect, right? 65 all the way back to 47. The whole thing, this whole thing is valid, right? And if you try to get pinpoint perfect in this thing, if you try to get pinpoint perfect, you just took a stop in here. But look, if you waited till we got above the last seller in here, bam, look at that. Look at the reversal, right? And what I didn't know, right, at the time is, would I get in here, here, or here? So what I can do is just go, look, I know this is an area, right? Wait for my first reversal bar and put my stop at the low. Does that keep me from losing a lot of money? Nope. 62.60 was the reversal bar, right? If I took it right there at the close, I know there's other ways to get it. My stop still would have been down here near 62.40. But look at my risk reward from that location, right? So now watch how the market treated all of that. Erase. Erase. All of that's open now, right? So watch when we come over the next day. Starting at 62.40 down to 62.31 and a quarter. Now remember, I missed this. So wherever I had it, I came up with 62.30 instead of 62.31 and a quarter, or I had it 62.29 and front ran this location by two points. But whichever one it was on my part, it was stupid. Let me tell you why. It was stupid because I just should have said, this whole area is valid. Let me look for the reversal bar. And I should have been long on this backside test over here, knowing that was a low volume node. So when I go back through my journal, right, I'm going to go fail, fail, fail. This is how I do this better next time, because look at the U-turns that I left off. So anyways, I'll be doing this work. I don't know how many of y'all got blurry-eyed. I'm all done, guys. Any questions? I bet if anyone's even awake. You're welcome. So if you have to choose between high volume nodes and low volume nodes, choose the low volume nodes, guys. If you try to pinpoint within a low volume node, if you have to pinpoint within a low volume node, you have a good chance of getting stopped out and watching it go for a long, long way. If you have to see, if you have to wait for the first green bar, right, and put a stop below that, right? And then the other part of that is go, hey, I'm in a low volume node. Once that thing takes off out of there, I'm going to put my stop there and let it run, right? Get your risk reward paid out of that thing, right? Let it freaking run. Anyways, I'm done. For everyone joined us on YouTube, thank you. Talk to you later, guys. Have a great weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. I'll be on an abbreviated week next week, along with everyone else, most likely. I expect a lot of chop. Talk to you later.